Talk about some ghosts. Ghost time.
Poop. So, it's ghost time. This is our podcast time. And what's our podcast, Chris?
Creatures of the Night Paranormal, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy.
Like we're DJs, like on a radio. So.
I know. Well, it's lame whether we forget to intro it and we do it 10 minutes in, or we do it all awkwardly, or we sound like radio DJs. It's not always going to sound good.
What does sound good is some ghost stories, and we like to tell them here on the podcast that you all have just attended. Thanks so much for showing up.
Thank you for joining us. I want to tell you real quick, though, speaking of this wonderful podcast that we put together, and it takes a lot of work, guys. We're working really hard for you. We are researching stories, and we are practicing, even though, it doesn't sound like we practice, but we do read through our podcasts and practice.
We do.
And so the other day, I was having a slow day at work. I have an office, so I can shut the door, be quiet. I can play podcasts or watch something or whatever. So I'm like, I really need to read through this podcast because it felt a little rough when I was writing it. So I start to read it, and I will read it out loud because I need to hear how it sounds. So I'm reading out loud, and then one of the doctors that I work for came to my door. He opened the door, and he goes, "I'm sorry, are you on speakerphone?" And I just look at him with a blank stare, and I go, "No." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, oh my God. He thinks I'm insane.
Did he hear your story?
Oh my gosh. If he did, he's subscribing, I'm sure, right now.
I'm sure.
He's like, what's this fascinating news she's talking about? No, now he thinks I'm insane, I'm sure.
Well, I've got something for you. Speaking of subscribers, it's not your doctor, but maybe it is under a different name. One of the followers of ours on Instagram commented on a recent podcast of ours. It was our episode 31, I'm Sorry, Sir, in This Weird Tunnel. Mm-hmm. And this group called SES Paranormal reached out to me on Instagram and was like, yeah, that's a great snow shed. I've spent many nights there. It's awesome. I reached back out to him, and I was kind of like, whoa, really? That's awesome. That's super cool. I would love to hear more. And the guy came back and was like, okay, well, actually, there's something on YouTube you might be interested in. So he didn't give me the link. I had to do some more digging, find because he told me, look us up NWPIA on YouTube. And I'm like, New World Order, what? I just was like, he's not giving me, he's really making me work for it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my best. This guy reached out to me, so I'm going to see what I can find. I did find a video on YouTube, NWPIA. It's had like 5,300 views. It is
nice.
Yeah, I know, because we have like 7,000 videos on YouTube, and they have like maybe 13 views, if that.
And it's just us.
It's just us. Look at it. So he said that this is when he was with this group at the time. So he's now SES Paranormal. He was this NWPIA back then. And they were at one of the snow sheds that you had talked about on your episode, and they're filming it. And this is a couple years ago. We all went through this as paranormal investigators. We had the best that we could get at the time, which isn't the best equipment that you could get, and shit. That stuff is still out there, because when you ain't got money, but you want to go ghost hunting, you just get what you can get. Like me, my Salvation Army and Goodwill finds. I don't know what they had to use during their investigation, but they're panning along one of those snow sheds, and something sticks its head out. And then as it's like leaning back, it just evaporates. It like disappears. It is a grainy video, but it was so cool. And I watched it first thing in the morning, because I've said that before. I'm very much a morning person. I sent a message on Instagram to him, and I was like, hey, I don't know if this is the video that you were talking about, but if so, kudos, man. Awesome find. And he's like, yeah, I think that's it. So I thought that was wonderful. All I did was post the opening, hey, this is our new show, Creatures of the Night Paranormal Podcast, episode 31, and the background was the snow shed. And that's the Instagram post that guy was cued into to tell me, hey, I spent many nights at that snow shed. I didn't even think that an image like that would cue someone into being like, yes, that place is awesome. I just used it because it was a cool ass background. It was related to the show, but I thought that was awesome. I know how much you like to hear when people respond. So
I love it. That's what I live for, is to have conversations about this and to find evidence. I mean, because I wrote that story and I never saw this. And all the times that I was Googling the trail and whatnot, looking for evidence and on YouTube and stuff like that, I didn't run across it because there's always so much to look at. Yeah. Did he have it under Stephen's Pass? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I didn't think to do that, to look for the variations of this is Wendy Point and this is, instead of just calling it, which trail was that? Oh, Iron Goat Trail.
Iron Goat. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Good memory. So yeah, that was there. And then another thing that I wanted to just quickly say, when I was looking for stuff to post on Instagram about the episode, I had seen a news article in somebody's blog. The news article was about Monty, Monty Illingsworth, the husband that murdered his wife. Oh. It was about him getting arrested and charged. And I searched high and low for this. I haven't been able to find it again. I've seen snippets, very tiny snippets of somebody getting charged, but not the full thing like I'd seen when I first started looking for this. So I don't know what happened to that news article, but it was a really good one. And I'm like, God, everyone would love to see this, but I couldn't find it. What I did find was, I'm going to get his name wrong, Don Wildman's Monumental Mysteries, where they did an episode on Your Lady in the Lake.
Because of the way she was mummified and stuff. Yeah, that's a scientific wonder right there. And I'm sure it took them, because bodies are thrown into the lake to see how that happens or works or whatever. So imagine that was an impressive find scientifically,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love those shows. So I was super psyched. It's my modern day Unsolved Mysteries. Oh, because there's evidence out there that points you to these things that happen, and the history is there. It's not so much of a mystery anymore because things have been put in a museum and researched and looked upon. So, but yeah, when I saw the connection there, I just kept digging and digging. I just loved that story so much, and it was great that we had someone in the paranormal community reach out to us and say, "P.S. Yo. Yes, it's haunted."
And to share that evidence, we really appreciate that. It was really awesome of them.
I did, actually. I copied the link and put it onto our post so that others could see it if they wanted to. But
nice.
Yes.
They need more views, but
I know. It was 5,300. I was like, go, guys, go. But so, yeah, I thought that was cool. Wanted to share that with you. It has nothing to do with my story whatsoever because that's how I roll. Just, random pieces of information here and there. Would you like to hear a story that I cooked up for you?
I'd love to hear a story. And randomness is, one of the adverbs for this. No, not adverbs. One of the verbs. Wait. Oh, I don't know.
It's his middle name. It's Creatures of the Night Randomness Paranormal Podcast.
I love it.
So some randomness for you. The story that I'm about to tell you really took me back to a story that I told you years ago. And it was a story that you referenced very recently on our Moundsville episode. Mm-hmm. It was the story of the Greenbrier Ghost, Zona, Heaster, Shue. I never got to tell her story. I don't know if we really went so deep into her story. It was just kind of like a blip and that's it. So just because I feel it's necessary for you to see how it somewhat relates to my story, I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version of it. Do they still make Cliff Notes? Would people understand what I'm talking about when I say that?
No, probably not.
I have Audible. There's no Cliff Notes that you can download. You have the internet for everything. I don't know if...
Yeah, I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think that's a thing. Would you go to just... Wikipedia then, and Wikipedia kind of sums it up for you?
Probably. Okay, so then I'm going to give you the Wikipedia version of it, I guess, but I didn't look it up in Wikipedia, so it's the Chris Duncan Cliff Note Wikipedia. Anyways, it's
just tell us.
So, anyways, Zona had sadly and suddenly passed away, yet her spirit visited her mother at night. It became like a regular ordeal, and though Zona couldn't speak, her mother became convinced that Zona's death was not an accident. Long story short, she got the legal backing to have her daughter exhumed, and upon re-examination of Zona, it was confirmed that her neck had been broken and her windpipe mashed, which was not how they originally thought she died. And it's also possibly why she couldn't actually speak as she was to her mom. So this fantastic story led them to determine that her husband had actually murdered Zona, which is why the story is so famous, because essentially her ghost brought her own killer to justice. Her killer.
Yeah, it's amazing. It
is an amazing story. And like I said, like we talk about it all the time, but it's like, we're just not going to do a podcast on this one. I don't know why. I guess it's because we know the story so well. It's not like it's going to be a surprise. It's not going to be a surprise. So her killer, who was her husband, had ended up dying in Moundsville. And since that story is just so super fresh in my mind, having just relived our moments in the West Virginia State Penitentiary, I went and dug up the story, which I'd actually been holding on to. I found it like a month or so after we decided to start this insane podcasting gig, but it had gotten shuffled down to the bottom of my pile just really for no reason at all. It's just I'd find a story, and then I'd find another story, and then another story, and then, it just slipped out of sight while I continued to slip further into the madness, and only just recently went back to it because we decided to do our Paranormal Podcast-a-thon, is what I'm calling it.
So people that don't know what we're talking about, we're recording like 4 episodes in one day because it's about to be like vacation time for everybody. And so we have to we have to make sure we can provide you excellent episodes each week while we're doing family things.
Right, exactly. We want to keep you caught up on your paranormal stuff because we know there's so many people listening to us. So we gotta keep cranking out the episodes. So I finally finished researching my story, and I'm very excited to bring this one to the show and to all of you. So here it is. My story begins with William and Frank Watson. They're twin brothers. They set themselves on a crusade to uncover the truth that it all stemmed from a ghost story their now deceased grandfather shared with them as part of a Thanksgiving Day tradition. Why on Thanksgiving? I have no idea.
Grandfather ever.
I know it. That's what I was thinking. He was awesome, and that's a great tradition. And note to self, I think the Duncan family might have a new tradition. So their grandfather, who was a retired Pennsylvania railroad worker, had this fascinating ghost story that really intrigued the twins. And every year they waited with high anticipation to hear the story again, as if it would change from one year to the next. Or maybe it was just the way he told it. Or, as some would say, maybe the devil was in the details. His story was a harrowing version of ghosts who appeared in the woods near the railroad tracks, which happens to be in the suburb of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The boys would anxiously listen as their grandfather described how a large group of Irish immigrants who had all died during a cholera epidemic would be seen glowing brightly and dancing on their graves in an area called Duffy's Cut. Up until their grandfather died, Frank and Bill thought the story that they had heard for many years was just, a local legend. Maybe something that old grandfather cooked up just to, make Thanksgiving Day even more fun holiday than it already is. Who knows? But within the papers they inherited from their deceased grandfather, they found an old document that was stamped private by the Pennsylvania Railroad Company. And their curiosity set them off to discover something with an even more disturbing history than what either of them could have even imagined. Yeah. And that's where the Unsolved Mysteries music cues in.
I'm certain they thought that these papers held all the answers to every question they had about that ghost story, and then just Grandpa's fascination with all of it. I mean, let's hope these papers didn't disappoint them.
Oh, it didn't. But it's funny because I mean, I don't know. It took them some time to actually get around to going through the papers, and probably because they probably had to clean out grandfather's stuff, and just all of that taking a toll on them. But they sat on them for a little bit and finally went back to them and were like, whoa, what is this? I forgot, about this amazing find. So, which was kind of funny to me because that piece of my story, I didn't even know until I went and finished researching this. And I was like, I did the same thing with the story. I was like, this is a great story. And then I was just like, It just got shuffled to the bottom of my stack. But anyways, the file that had belonged to their grandfather, who had once been the assistant to a Martin Clement. He was a 1940s era Pennsylvania Railroad president. This file held a collection of letters and other documents Clement assembled during a company-wide investigation from 1909. In the file were the details of a cholera outbreak of 1832, which swept through a construction encampment along a stretch of railroad that would connect Philadelphia with Columbia, Pennsylvania. Contemporary newspapers, which usually kept detailed numbers of local cholera fatalities, implied that only a handful of men had actually died at the camp, although Clement's inquiry had confirmed that at least 57 men actually perished.
Yeah, that's not a few.
Right. They were all said to have been buried in the woods in an area near the railroad tracks called Duffy's Cut, 30 miles from Philadelphia. The file also mentioned that the cholera story had been a cover-up. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Jaw dropping. What?
Yeah. So as they continued to read through the old classified papers, they came across some documented stories. Eyewitness accounts from people who claim to have seen some unusual sights in the woods. One man, as he walked home from a tavern late in September of 1919, saw something he later agreed was very hard to imagine. In his account, green ghosts danced in a mist. The witness swore in a written report that he saw ghosts of a dead Irishman that had died in the cholera epidemic. That was just what he thought. Here's his statement, quote unquote, "A dancing around the big trench where they were buried. It's true, mister. It was awful. They looked as if..."
I'm sorry. He sounds like me telling a story.
I should probably do it with more enthusiasm, but it's just funny reading it and then realizing this is how this guy was just like, whoa, I really saw this shit. I know it's mind blowing, but check this shit out. And I'll go back to the quote. "They looked as if they were kind of green and blue fire, and they were hopping and bobbing on their graves."
This is insane.
Yeah, this was reported, what did I say, 1919. The document also mentioned that the locals felt the Irishmen haunted the place because they were buried without the benefit of a clergy. And while that may play a minor role in this, there might have been an even more unsettling reason for the unrest of these spirits. It was at this point that the Watson twins realized that this ghost story that they had come to know so well might just be the real deal, and became convinced that the railroad covered up the deaths of the 57 Irish laborers. Within the old papers, there were clues that the workers were all interred in a mass grave. And with that said, the twins set off to begin excavating the pre-Civil War railroad construction site just outside of Philadelphia.
Hold on. Wait. Double hold on, because I just
what was that?
I'm really burpy right now. Sorry.
Don't growl at me. I promise it's going to get good.
No, I'm like on the edge of my seat, like waiting to hear. Like, what is this cover up? I'm sorry. You said the twins read this stuff and then they go out and start digging in the woods. Yeah. They're like, we're going to solve this mystery ourselves. I love them.
What was there was Nancy Drew, and then there was the guys version of Nancy Drew. I can't think of what they're the Hardy Boys, right? That's what these guys.
Yeah.
These guys are like the original Hardy Boys. So yes, the twins, tipped off by the longtime secret railroad company document, the Watsons searched the woods around Malvern, Pennsylvania, which for 4.5 years in search of, as they called the workers, our men, before finally locating a skeleton in March of 2009. William is a professor of medieval history at the Immaculata University, and his brother Frank is a Lutheran minister. Like, they are the team. Both belong to Irish and Scottish cultural societies, and they happen to be competitive bagpipers. Boom.
Oh. These dudes get cooler and cooler.
By the minute, right?
Yes.
So what's interesting is neither of them had any prior archaeological training. They're just cool dudes.
Do you you have to. I mean, just go start digging around. I've like seen a lot of people on Josh Gates' show that happen to just seem like they're just digging around.
They're just digging. Yeah, especially the live episode, and they're just like, lift up the mummy. And they're like, okay, yeah. No, not like that, guys. Where's your archaeological training? Yeah, don't have any. Aha, I see. So the skeleton that they had discovered had been reduced to nothing more than a jumble of bones. The skull, vertebrae, toes, teeth, and ribs were all that had remained. They also discovered that the plates of the man's skull were not fully fused, indicating that he was a teenager when he died. He was relatively short, yeah. He was 5'6", but quite strong, judging from his bone structure. X-rays showed that he never grew an upper right first molar, which is apparently a very rare genetic defect.
Interesting.
This guy was the key. This guy. The Watsons were able to identify him as John Ruddy, an 18-year-old laborer from rural County Donegal, County Donegal, who sailed from Derry, Ireland in the spring of 1832. It is likely that he had cholera alongside dozens of his countrymen, all which were said to have died within 2 months of setting foot on the American shores. Yeah. Now, their dig has started to shed some light on early 19th century, when thousands of immigrants labored to build the infrastructure of the still young nation. Labor unions were in their infancy. Working conditions were controlled entirely by the companies, most of which had little regard for the safety of their employees. The Pennsylvania grave was nothing more than a human trash heap, says Frank Watson. Similar burial sites lie alongside the country's canals, dams, bridges, and railroads. Their locations both known and unknown, their occupants nameless. But the Watsons were determined to find the Irishmen at this site, and since beginning their expedition in 2004, they have unearthed the mingled remains of several others.
I'm so proud of them.
They really did. They did some amazing stuff. They uncovered that work on the Philadelphia and Columbia line was originally a horse-drawn train, began in 1828. 3 years later, a contractor named Philip Duffy got the okay to construct Mile 59, which was one of the toughest stretches. The project required leveling a hill, known as making a cut, and using the soil to fill in neighboring valley in order to flatten out the ground. It was nasty work. The dirt was, quote-unquote, heavy as the dickens, says railroad historian John Hankey. I love him. He actually was a railroad historian that visited the site. And he also said, sticky, heavy, a lot of clay, and a lot of stones, shale, and rotten rock. Duffy, labeled a middle-class Irishman, had tackled previous railroad projects by enlisting, and I quote again, a sturdy-looking band of the Sons of Erin, reported by an 1829 newspaper article. I don't know what that means. It sounds awesome in Irish, so I had to leave it in there. By 1830, census records show that Duffy was sheltering immigrants in his rental home. Like many laborers from Ireland's rural north, Duffy's workers were most likely poor, Catholic, and Gaelic-speaking. They were typically single men traveling with few possessions who would perform punishing jobs for next to nothing. The average wages for immigrant laborers were $10 to $15 a month, with miserable lodging and a large allowance for whiskey.
That $10 or $15.
Yeah, right.
I'll sleep outside.
I know.
No, sir, I don't need any food. That's fine. I'm
straight.
Good.
No, sir. Oh, my God, that's so funny. When cholera swept the Philadelphia countryside in the summer of 1832, railroad workers housed in a shanty near Duffy's Cut fled the area. According to Julian, this is a tough one, Sash, I think. There's a C and an H and an SE there at the end, which makes it confusing to me. I'll go with Sash. Julian was a historian who interviewed elderly locals in the late 1800s. But nearby homeowners, perhaps fearful of infection, turned them all away. because it was not yet known that cholera would spread through contaminated water sources. So the laborers went back to the valley to be tended only by a local blacksmith and nuns from the Sisters of Charity, who went to the camp from Philadelphia. Later, after the men had perished, the blacksmith buried their bodies and torched the shanty. That story was more legend than history back in August of 2004, when the Watsons began digging along mile 59, which is very close to the modern Amtrak tracks. They actually had to obtain permission from local homeowners in the state of Pennsylvania to excavate the area. But in 2005, Hanky visited the valley and on a hunch guessed where the workers would have made their shelter. And sure enough, the diggers found evidence of a burned area 30 feet wide. Excavations turned up old glass buttons, pieces of dishes and bowls, and clay pipes, including one stamped with the image of an Irish harp, but they found no bodies. Disappointed by not uncovering additional skeletal remains, Frank Watson went back to the old Clement file and reread a railroad employee's statement. I quote, "I heard my father say that they were buried where they were making the fill," end quote, which pointed them in the direction of the original railroad tracks. And in December of 2008, the Watsons asked a geoscientist by the name of Tim Betchel to concentrate his ground-penetrating radar search along the embankment. That's right. We got that LiDAR shit. Yo.
That's what I'm just saying.
Love it.
I love those things.
I love it whenever I hear anybody say the words ground-penetrating radar. It's like I'm tuned in. So here, he detected a large anomaly, possibly an air pocket formed by decomposed bodies. 3 months later, shortly after St. Patrick's Day, a student worker named Patrick Berry struck a leg bone with his shovel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Watson brothers were very hopeful that they would recover every last body. In doing so, they could uncover the truth about their demise, which, based on evidence left in the found skulls, some of the men might have actually been murdered.
You don't say. I don't know. This is just extremely fishy. Mass graves, that's never...
Yeah, it's never a real good sign. It's not like a...
I mean, because you're working the railroad, so you're moving along with it. So you'd see a body here, a body there, because they're passing away from disease.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them all of a sudden? What just happened here?
Right. So, Janet Monge, University of Pennsylvania forensic anthropologist, was called in to analyze the remains. Many of the recovered skulls show signs of trauma at the time of death, and to the surprise of all, she found that these men and one woman had not died of cholera, but from various sharp blows to the head. Yeah, that's right. Bullet wounds and axe nicks were all found in the 4 skulls recovered.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just don't know what to even say. I'm like,
I know. It just keeps going on and on and on. I'm telling you.
Just keep telling me everything.
This is crazy. The Irishmen at Duffy's Cut were most likely suffering from cholera, sure, but it was starting to become clear that these men had all been murdered. It's believed that the Irish railroad workers, who had only been in the country for 6 weeks at the time cholera broke out, were probably killed out of ignorance at the hands of locals, fearing that they would ultimately aid in the spread of cholera. Identifying the bodies has been a challenge because the laborers' names are absent from the census records and newspaper obituaries. And, says William Watson, the archives of the Sisters of Charity provide only a spotty account. The most promising clue is the passenger list of a ship, the John Stamp, that's the name of the ship, which was the only vessel in the spring of 1832 to come from Ireland to Philadelphia with a large number of Irish laborers on board, including a teenager named John Ruddy of Donegal.
So they definitely came from there, more than likely.
More than likely, yeah. We're thinking that makes sense. The news media in Ireland has reported on Duffy's Cut dig since 2006. And the discovery of Ruddy's skeleton made headlines. The Watsons received phone calls and emails from several Ruddys in Ireland, including a Donegal family whose members exhibit the same congenital defect
If you ask me to say that, I'm going to end up saying genitalia or something. So, like, good luck.
I should have just skipped it. They found the same defect found in the skeleton, which I mentioned earlier, that it's a genetic abnormality. It's exceptionally rare. So they've been able to tie the family back to this person, this one guy. That's why I said, like earlier, he was the key. The Watsons are confident that they found the family John Ruddy left behind nearly 2 centuries ago. But to be certain, the brothers are doing genetic testing to compare DNA from the skeleton of that of the Donegal Ruddys. And if there's a match, Ruddy's remains will be sent back to Ireland for a family burial.
Aww.
Any unclaimed remains the Watsons disinter will be buried beneath a Celtic cross in West Laurel Hill Cemetery. In the meantime, the Watsons held their own impromptu memorial service, going down to the mass grave one June afternoon to play the bagpipes.
Oh, I love
because
it
they're so bad at it. So, just like Unsolved Mysteries, I have an update.
Those are the best.
I know, right? So I have an update. That information was actually a little bit old. I found some more, but I just had to leave all that in there because of how beautiful all of that was. Since then, 6 of the bodies have been ceremoniously laid to rest at West Laurel Cemetery in March of 2012. According to a Philadelphia Inquirer, there were over 500 people in attendance.
That's beautiful.
It is. What's even better, in March of 2013, Mr. Ruddy was given a ceremonial burial at the Church of the Holy Family in Ardara, Donegal, Ireland. So that now 7 of the immigrants from the John stamp have all finally been properly laid to rest. The search for the remaining 50 goes on.
And that dancing, is that still going on?
Oh, well.
Do we have to go to the tavern to ask around?
Maybe. I actually got goosebumps reading this story out. I've read it 1,000 times to myself because I was so excited, but I actually got goosebumps just telling you that. So,
well, it's just beautiful because it was wrong all the way around. I mean, even if they weren't, there wasn't this not conspiracy, but this cover up and false information that they just died from disease, no big deal, but you just threw them in the ground, like I just don't think that that's how it would have been handled had they not been Irish.
Yeah, you're onto something. I'll touch on that a little bit more. I do have a little more paranormal stuff for you, but it's not the dancing guys. Even though that was super badass and I loved it. This is different. A group of investigators called the Chester County Paranormal Society, or CCPRS for short, received permission to do EVP sessions with the Frank's box at Duffy's Cut. They did end up communicating with the spirits that remain in the area, and from their time there, I have a rather disturbing snippet or a sampling from one of the Frank's box sessions, so I'll read it to you. Question: do you know Duffy? Answer: yeah, the devil.
Oh, wait.
Question.
That's not what I asked you. I'm sorry.
Wait, I'm telling. It's question. What about those homes up there? Answer: cursed. Question: are you with God? Answer: no, abyss. As I've said before, it is called Duffy's Cut because the man who brought the Irishmen and women to work in the area was named Philip Duffy. Mm-hmm. Duffy was an Irish contractor whose task was to hire men and build the section of the railroad, though he was not very well liked by the 57 immigrants. As the story suggests, he housed them and paid them, but he basically paid them piss, and in the end, he was more or less viewed like being a wealthy slave laborer. And it's been speculated that a local vigilante group who met near the Irish immigrants' shantytown did not like the Catholic Irish immigrants, so they attacked and murdered them, hence the cover-up. Basically, it had nothing whatsoever to do with the cholera, even though it's clear that back then they really didn't know how it spread, and there was a very real fear that anybody could spread the disease. But you hit the nail on the head a second ago before I even got there. It seems more like these people just didn't want them in their town.
Yeah, and they're not going to take the added risk of hearing that some of them are sick or whatever. It wouldn't matter if their own daughter had the same disease at that time or whatever, and they understood how they were keeping her away from people or well, and these people weren't socializing with other people. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, they could have been doing everything right to stay out of people's way, and it wouldn't have mattered. They didn't want them there in the first place. They found an excuse to hate them even more.
Right. Yeah.
And they took care of the problem, and nobody gave a damn because the people that gave a damn are across the sea. Right.
And hate is just such a horrible disease. You know, it just spreads and breeds bad things. And for no other reason, most likely they just hated them because, like you pointed out earlier, if they had died while working, it would have been one after another along the railroad track. It wouldn't have been in a mass grave. So the fact that the science is there that indicates that some of them were shot or axed, these people were attacked, and it was pretty brutal. It doesn't sound like a very good thing at all. And most likely why they were they wanted their stories to be told. They were reaching out. They were, hey, we're here. This isn't fair, you know?
Yeah.
And while one guy, his account says that they were dancing, maybe they weren't. Maybe they were trying to run.
No, I'm going to say they're dancing.
Think so? They're dancing?
I'm serious. I know they're not at rest and they're not at peace where they need to be because I'm sure they have strong beliefs that certain things are supposed to be done when you pass away, and those things weren't done, and they were victimized as well. So their souls weren't at peace is what I'm saying. But I bet they're still going to have fun either way. So I'm like, well, if we're all stuck in this together, you know, it's 11 o'clock. Crank that music up.
So that's what they were doing. Yeah.
It's time for a dance party. I mean, I don't know. I want to believe that they're going to make the best of a situation no matter what it was. However, in doing that, they got people's attention, and it affected these two brothers. And it's like a life mission. They're gonna figure this out, and they're gonna put it right. And that's so impressive. They're just they're the heroes, man.
They really are. They are so incredible. I loved the moment I read about this. I was like, is this a real thing? How is this not like even more national news? Like, this is just incredible. But I guess I would have had to have been in Pennsylvania to hear about it, which is sad, you know, or Ireland. I think that this should have been more well known. This is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, they should be nationally recognized. Yeah, recognized. Especially in these days. Come on. Give them their 2 minutes on TV fame. Right. I mean, like, nobody has attention spans for longer than that in the first place. But, I mean, an article could be thrown out there. There's all kinds of shit on the internet. So, I mean, I need to see this. I need to hear this. Everybody should know.
I'm very proud to do the story, and I can't wait to put this all over social media because this is another one of those stories that people need to hear about. Mm-hmm. It's a great one. The Watson brothers were just super motivated that the story of the Irish workers be known. They formed a project. Well, they formed this, it's called the Duffy's Project, and their goal is to preserve the memories of these 57 Irish immigrants who came to America chasing the American dream, but instead had lost their lives. The Amtrak Railroad, who owns the property today, would not issue any additional permits for more digging at the tracks near Malvern, Pennsylvania, since the dig was way too close to the train tracks. Basically, it's a hazard. So there may be continued paranormal activity there. However, since I'm not there and I can't interview anyone, I don't have any more details to share. Also, this location does apparently butt right up to a neighborhood. So I can't imagine that many people are actually getting the chance to wander over there and you know, all super undetected just to investigate. I think it would have to be by permission only. Like I saw some pictures of like the mass grave, and there's houses like right there. It's all like in someone's backyard pretty much, you know? So if you saw some strange guy in all black clothing, like tiptoeing through your backyard, you'd be like, yeah, let's call the cops.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
That's a negative. Let's not do that, paranormal investigators.
Right.
Let's not scare the neighbors.
But I know that these guys are doing everything that they can, at least to keep the memory alive of the 57 who perished at that time.
And that's fantastic and so honorable.
They brought it all to light. I mean, because it still would have been a ghost story. And who knows, maybe there would have been more dancing blue and green ghosts out there. And maybe there still are to this day. I don't know, because like I said, you can't, it's not an area you can go investigate. Sorry, guys. I know we love to tell you, get out there and investigate, go in and travel and find. This is not one of those places you can really do that. There is a train tracks there. You will probably die if you're trying to do that shit in the night, or you will get the cops called on you, because like I said, there's a neighborhood right there. So just hear the story, go on the internet and see all of the beautiful work that these guys have done to preserve their memory. It is wonderful. It's one of those like feel good kind of stories, because it's like, man, what am I doing with my life? I'm in customer service. No, these guys are out. One is, hang on. Okay. Yeah. They're both playing bagpipes. Good for them. I can't do that either. I could play the kazoo. Yeah. But they got some good shit going on. And they just, I love the story, and I love those two guys, and I wish them well. And I hope that once because I have all these stories saved, and I like to revisit them every now and then in Google just to see what's going on. I hope that maybe a year or so, I will find that they got finally permission to dig up that area, and maybe they were able to resolve it. But
I don't know. It might compromise the tracks, is what when you first said that the Amtrak told them to stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been an issue because of the way the tracks have to be built up and stuff. I'm such an engineer. I know all about that. Not really. Now, I have no idea, but I love what these guys are doing. And I know that their grandfather told them a story when they were kids, and every year they wanted to hear it. And then after his passing, they were diligent enough to go through his stuff and be like, what's this? And then go that step further. So this means a lot to them. And so I'm sure they'll keep trying despite any kind of setbacks of like, no, man, you got to slow it down. Hey, there's those, like we just talked about, those machines that see into the damn dirt. And I'm sure we'll figure out something how we can extract some stuff without tearing up too much dirt or something like that.
Some kind of x-ray machine.
Something. Do you know they have robots that do surgery now for the doctors? So, I mean, come on.
I know. And all I want is just something that I can slide into my boss's room when she's on the phone with the door shut, so I can hear if she's talking about me. That's all I need. Just something small.
I think that's
a little robot.
Spy equipment.
Wait, like the Walmart stuff, the stuff they sell in the kids section?
But I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe it already exists. Maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm not smart like this. I'm just saying. But like, if they know there's a bone down in the dirt right here, then get a machine that goes down there and penetrates down to it and can take a sample from it.
Yeah.
But not actually have to dig up the dirt is all I'm saying.
Yeah. That would be awesome. And where we are right now with technology, they can just see like a blip. They can't tell for sure. They would actually have to dig it up to see what's down there. So maybe we will be there in a couple more years. And these boys, I have a feeling, are still going to be on it, because they just seem like they put away so many years already just researching something like that. So I don't think that that's something that they're just willing to walk away from. But
yeah, well. I'm super proud of them. That was an amazing story. I was going to cry. I mean, like...
I know. That's why I was like, I got to rush it. I can't let her cry with this. It is a beautiful story, though. It is a good one. And I was proud, like I said, to come across it. So, and I feel so super stupid for just letting this one kind of get buried, because it's a great
No, it's probably
story.
Good. You let it go for a little longer, and there might be a little more to add to it, and all positive stuff, because... Yeah. You're only doing good there in recognizing those that lost their lives. Now, what you were saying about people into ghosts, paranormal investigators, whatever you want to call yourself, stay away from the train tracks. Yeah. Don't be stupid. Don't scare the neighbors. However, neighbors, if you happen to be having some kind of strange activity, if you're like, hey, I live in that area.
Yeah.
Then let us know if anything weird has ever happened in your house. Have you seen some green mist? Have you heard some, bagpipes or, that type of folky music playing? Have you seen anybody dancing around that shouldn't be in your house?
Yeah, right?
First call the police, then send us an email.
Right. Yes, email us at creaturesofthenight@gmail.com and tell us your story. That'd be a good one to hear.
Yeah, I love it.
Not an actual intruder. That one is a definite call the cops. You don't have to tell us anything. We also know that that's scary as fuck. So we're good there.
But if you want to share your story, if it's relieving for you to release that and share it with somebody. So sidebar, real quick. I was alone one night and I was getting like just stupid scared for no reason. We have a gun but we like never use it. And I was like, I'm not even sure I remember how to load this properly. So I'm laying in bed trying to watch YouTube videos on how to properly load it just because I want to be like, in the moment. You don't want to be like, do I do this? Hold on a second, intruder. So I'm trying to watch videos. And it led me to this woman telling her story about a home invasion. And I'm like, that's absolutely not what I want to hear right now. Wow. But I totally did listen to it.
Yeah, but that was epic. Also, by the way, Wendy, be careful of searching for shit like that because if, something happens in your house, they go onto your YouTube history and they're like, why was she researching how to load a gun? Damning evidence.
Well, I'll try not to kill any of them. So
thank you.
Yes.
It's like Conan O'Brien with his murder sign.
Yeah. So if it's, I don't even know what I was saying, but if you want to share your home intruder, nope, don't do that. We're the wrong people to talk to about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we love to listen just as much as we love to talk. So send us your stories. We prefer them to be paranormal, but if you got other stories, then that's cool. Write us at least so we know that our email account works.
Good point. You can also comment like on any of the posts that we put out on social media. On Instagram, we are COTN_paranormal. And on Twitter and Facebook, we are COTN paranormal. And you can go to our website, creaturesofthenightparanormal.com. You can comment on blogs, our past investigations, or there's links to our podcast that takes you to YouTube, and then you can comment there if you'd like. So all kinds of forums for you to discuss things with us. And as always, please rate and review our podcast to let us know how we're doing, because we have no idea without you telling us. We think it's great. We enjoy our time together. I have fun with you, Chris. But if we're boring everybody else,
yeah, right. We need to know
so we can probably tell us.
Right. We have other things. We could be doing paint night and talking paranormal stories without actually working so hard to get all the details like we do. We still enjoy doing that, but we wouldn't have to make sure we get everyone's names right and all the hard stuff.
We totally make all this up
for our enjoyment. But you can also come to our spiritemporium.com. We're on Instagram, and we have a store where we sell things that help you with paranormal situations. It just depends on what you got going on. If you're looking for something in particular, you can reach out to us on Instagram. It's The Spirit Emporium on Instagram, and let us know if there's anything else that you would like for us to produce for you, because we're always looking for new ideas. We've only got our own two minds, and our own ideas basically stem from our past experiences. So if you've got something else that you're looking for, hit us up and let us know.
Yes. And if you want to shop, then you can go to thespiritemporium.com, or you can go to creaturesofthenightparanormal.com, or you can go to Etsy if you like going through there. And there's lots of products, like Chris said. It just depends on what you're looking for, but there's things to cleanse, but there's also things to help connect. So just stuff that we've used and we feel like it works. So, if you're looking for something to enhance your experience or to cleanse yourself after a bad experience, then we've got some stuff on there. So check that out, along with our t-shirts that we sell on there. Lots of fun designs. And again, we're always open up to suggestions. We feel like we're all a group here. So if you've got anything to say to us, just fucking say it, man.
Right? Yeah. Tell us.
Just tell us.
Spit it out. Tell us how you feel.
And that's it, right?
That's it. That's all I got. Yeah, that's it. No, wait, I'm not done. No, I'm totally done. Okay. All right. Anyways, thanks so much, guys, for listening. Bye.
Bye.